Hello and welcome to the Stacking Dingers Show. I'm your host, Matthew, aka Sheep, aka Dark Sheep, and you are here at your home for all things underdog best ball. And we'll see. Maybe we'll get into some DraftKings. DraftKings is open now. Drafters is open now. All the best ball is available. But tonight we're once again focusing on underdog. We got Billy here. What's up, Billy? As usual, and returning from some excellent shows last year, Eric Easy, EZDFS.XYZ is where you can find him. What's up, guys?
It's
Okay, I guess so.
I'm so not used to being on a microphone after it's been a while since football draft season and getting all the the dailies and weeklies. So as you can tell by the amazing silence there, so happy to be back and like energized about like a new sport, something to talk about online and think about. I love baseball, like all the statistics and projections and how deep you can go and how shallow we've kind of discovered the best ball landscape to be so far. So I think it's a really good opportunity.
Yeah, I'm really excited. There's been a lot more buzz, I think, this year. A lot more people coming in and having new questions. And so tonight the main focus is part one of the infield breakdown. So we're going to probably roll through 10 rounds of infielders and talk about every single one of them as you try and figure out what you like to do in the drafts as we get into the heart of the season. Pitchers and catchers are reporting today, so we're going to get a bunch of injury news and stuff on those guys coming in. So we're putting the pitcher one in the back of these episodes. We're going to run through infield this week, outfield next week, then pitching the week after. So speaking of new things this year, Easy. So you've held off on drafting so far. So before we get into the infield, I think that's an interesting conversation to have. So what are your thoughts there on delaying your draft in the, is it just you needed a break, or did you have some ideas behind it too?
Yeah, it's a combination of things. I find, just fatigue with NFL season, and B, I've always been in this for NFL as well. I've backloaded or tried to backload my entries as much as possible. If you're max entering, it's hard, right, feasibly to do so without like something compromising. Either you go crazy towards the end, or you're multi-tabling like 4 or 5 at a time, and you start to lose, some attention, right? So make some optimal things. But I've always found that, I think early draft periods, you have a sharp player pool that's like really engaged and interested. Sometimes you have people aping in that don't know, but I think for baseball, that's not super common compared to like football, where general knowledge is like good enough. There people think it's good enough. So I think later I'm like more likely to run into people that are like potentially chasing overlay or just want like some action. It's like, oh, this locks next week. So that's one. And then two, I'm a big proponent, and there's more evidence about this for, NFL, but I just want like bodies, like as many bodies as possible, especially for pitchers. So something that I care a lot about is pitcher volume. So like any drafts that I do now, and it's not the show for it specifically, but like if I'm drafting in February, like I'm more likely to go 7, sometimes 8 pitchers. And then towards end of March, once I understand like who came into camp hurt or not hurt, like the Kyle Bradishes of the world, etc. Not to pour salt on old wounds, but like things like that. Like I think that information is a lot. If you like, nothing really happens between February and late March, and if you're only drafting 6 pitchers, you lose 16% of your like armory before the season starts. Kind of brutal. So yeah, that's just kind of my philosophy. It might be like a risk aversion thing, but also kind of attacking the landscape a bit differently.
All right.
That makes a ton of sense. I still even try to like avoid the sharp rooms. Like I love watching our friends that stream, but I try to sometimes avoid them because I know there's a lot of people that have good content and using projections in those drafts. So I'm totally with you. I'm kind of trying to avoid the sharp drafters.
Yeah, it might be smart to on Fridays, when we run a sheep seats show, jump in the draft after. All right, let's do it. We got a lot to get through, so let's bring it up here. Billy's put together a little bit better graphic than just scrolling through the lists last year. Quick rundown: we have names, teams, current ADP as of today, position rank, and the round that they're going in, and then over here on the right we have projections available on Fangraphs from Derek Carty. Converted to underdog scoring. So this is the total would be how much, according to the projections, that they would score an underdog through the entire season. Again, that doesn't apply to our entire contest. It's the entire season. And then a per plate appearance number, the number of projected plate appearances, and then a couple of little gems in the what matters for scoring, kind of a quick look at where their scoring is coming from. So home run rate, WOBA, and stolen base UD point percentage. So kind of because the debate is often, does this guy get stolen bases? Is that a floor, a ceiling? That's not really, I don't want to start that debate now, but this at least gives you an idea of how the hitter is going to score. So number one, Bobby Witt Jr., ADP 3.8. I've seen screenshots with him going first pick. I've been taking him third in some eliminators that I've started the last day or so. Just showed this elite ceiling last year. So there's no red flags for Bobby Witt.
Yeah, I totally agree. And these are the data points that I use to come up with my own rankings. And Bobby Witt just like kind of jumps off the page, and you can see that from the way things are colored. He, from a total points perspective per at bat, or per plate appearance, he's going to just rack up points. He hits home runs, does damage, and he is the type of player who, like, if you're just kind of like structure, I want outfielders. Like you need some level of exposure to him because in a playoff setting, he could totally run it up. So, absolute superstar.
Yeah, and I think that there's still meat on the bone for Bobby Witt, and Elly as well, and Gunnar. So it's actually a really fun top three, and I don't want to talk about all of them all at once, but like relative to the outfielders go top three pretty reliably. But like I don't absolutely hate an argument if you want to push Bobby to three, just to say like he's still like 24, 25. And I think that there's potentially some more pop there that he hasn't necessarily unlocked to just like a turbo nuclear for a season. So can't go wrong with him at 4. Maybe it's like my inner Yankee fan that wants to fade Soto and push him up to 3, but I do have him at 4. So I think he deserves to be here.
Yeah. And one small bonus is he basically had nobody ahead of him last year that got on base. And they have brought in Jonathan India, who has basically an OPS higher than anybody that had any at-bats for Kansas City last year. So the theory being, he should be able to get a few more RBIs with somebody that actually can get on base ahead of him. All right, number 2, Elly De La Cruz, ADP 6. He, depending on the room that you're in, I think he can fall a little more than some of these other names in their early rounds. He kind of I think he has a more variable ADP, but he's still in round 1. And the stolen base, 13.5% of his UD projection comes from the stolen bases, which looking at the Bat X, it's not going to be outrageous in terms of like trying to over project stolen base. It's going to be a lot. It's going to bring him down from, I think, last year. So Eric, what was your Elly position last year, and how has it changed or stayed the same?
I was pretty bullish on Elly last year. Didn't necessarily help, but in theory, I think that's pretty correct. And I have him ranked 5th in the pool this year. I think same for Bobby Witt, that people are likelier to call an outlier in the projections models, and rightfully so. We're going to regress because it's a pretty unstable profile that you see from Elly, like super high K rate. He hits home run, like it seems like his percentage of extra base hits that like go over the wall seems pretty high. Something that might be ballpark related, but yeah, great ballpark. He's like 22 years old, super elite prospect, like 70, 80 grade power, can steal, like he's projected to steal 54 bases from conservative models. Like, I don't know, could he steal 100 bases in a year? Like, it's not out of, it's like maybe like 2 standard deviations away, which is really not that crazy. So like you could have like a 35 home run, 80 steals, like right within reach. So yeah, I'm like all in on Elly, and I understand that like risk aversion, like to go with like a Kyle Tucker, like just if that's like the toss up at ADP 6. But yeah, I'm really in on Elly.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back to just last year. I had to go to one game to see him live in Milwaukee here, and that was the game that he was on first base. He steals second. The ball gets overthrown. He head first slides into second. The ball's overthrown or gets through the second baseman, whoever is taking the catch, and then he makes it home before anybody can throw him out. So from prone to up and around, and so it's the real deal. But like you said, the K rate is the variability. He did have, we did see kind of a drop off in production as the season went on last year. But yeah, the ADP makes sense. It just depends on the room. If like, I'll take him if he falls more often, just because, I still have my biases against him. But I don't think anybody has any biases against Gunnar Henderson, another really young guy with high upside. Billy, anything on Gunnar that stands out to you?
So I really like Gunnar Henderson. He is the last of what I think is like the tier 1. I think then you get into this next wave of a little bit older, but you got these 3 shortstops, young, ascending, and he is on a team that is supposed to be one of the best offensive teams in the league this year, and it's largely built around him. And he hits for a ton of power, and is just going to get a ton of plate appearances. So there's nothing wrong with this pick, and he's definitely a way to combat like not being able to get one of these premium outfielders that are. So him at the back of the first round is just a really nice pick.
Yeah. And then, so after him, we do start getting into the older players. Jose Ramirez, just, underrated. I don't know. I hate those kind of conversations, but he's not as popular as he should be for the just like consistency and the numbers that he puts up. Eric, are you fine with Jose at the end here of the first round?
I am. I think like this to Billy's point, this is kind of like the quote unquote boring part of the infield curve here. Like I have Elly, or sorry, I have Jose at 11. Like I have him right at ADP. Fits the build. Like I would not hesitate to draft him here versus like pushing up an outfielder if that's something that people are doing. Like I think Jose is a great source of 35. He steals bags. Like he literally does everything. Just missed 40-40 by a home run last year. Yeah, so he's like still peaking. So yeah, there's still plenty of goodness here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he did overperform his fly balls, home runs. I think he does get to some of the pulled power, kind of as a driver of the power. So that could be a not as easily repeatable thing, but yeah, he's just solid here. Mookie Betts, another totally solid guy. Ends up with infield ranking on underdog because he is going to play shortstop. Billy, are you concerned at the this point in the aging curve of Mookie Betts to have some worry here still as he's a borderline first round?
I guess some level of worry, but he's still just going to accumulate at an unbelievable level. Has power still, and while he definitely goes down being an infielder, I think that he's just a totally fine pick. And I think the hard part is that where he is, if I'm going to be at the back of the first round, I like Gunnar Henderson, I like Jose Ramirez, and then am I going to tack on Mookie Betts as well? Not typically, but if I'm going to be, if one of the outfielders kind of falls in my lap late, then Mookie Betts feels pretty nice.
Yeah, and I guess I've done a couple, at the turn. We'll get to him and Freddie later, but that is an interesting way to start a team too. If you want to start a Dodger stack from there, you're not going to get Teoscar back to you at this point now that he's signed, but it is an interesting start there. Then flipping over to a guy who is also kind of, he definitely had a peak season last year, Francisco Lindor. He's ADP of about 18. There's a gap here. Eric, are you concerned that you're buying kind of a peak year from last year?
A bit, yeah. I think he's like totally fine at ADP, but I actually have Vlad a couple spots ahead. Just like if I'm in the middle of that second round and I want an infielder, I'm still shooting the moon for Vlad. A little more power there, playing into that decision. So, if I'm having to make that, like if I had a premium outfielder round one and I'm looking to get a little more points in round two, like I'm flipping Vlad over Frankie.
I think this is so interesting that Vlad is still behind Lindor right now. Like every projection has had Vlad total and per plate appearance as one of the best picks you could have. Like also from a Mets perspective, Soto sits on the front side of the board, so Lindor from a stacking I could see fall. So it's just like it's interesting that hasn't flipped. Yeah.
I mean, speaking of Soto, that is the positive you could maybe sell yourself on in Lindor is having Soto part of that lineup, and most of the rest of the lineup staying the same. Giving him some scoring boost. I don't know exact order that they're going to roll out this year. I haven't really thought about that, but some correlation boost there. But yeah, Vlad, I'm heavy Vlad this year. I don't know. Maybe I'm just too projection pilled here, but he just always projects super well. He never really quite makes the projections. I guess that would be the only concern. He had the Dunedin year where they played in the minor league park that some people will theorize has juiced his numbers ever since it's kind of thrown off the aging curve. But we saw it last year, and I'm just going a ton of Vlad starting. I'm trying to get any combo of first round outfielder, second round Vlad.
Yep.
Yeah. So then Freddie Freeman here, ADP 22. You look at his I guess other than Matt Olson. I'm just kind of looking. Yeah, he's kind of lower here on the total and per plate appearance. also hitting the aging curve on the downswing. Still coming off of the ankle stuff from the World Series. Eric, are you downgrading Freddie at all for age, or are you just fine?
It's not necessarily age. I think that Olsen has more, like, I have them back to back, and I have Olsen one spot ahead. So for me, maybe a little bit of it is age. I think Olsen's like 3 years younger, and more pop. So I think I'll probably be a broken record on this, but I'll break every tie towards home run, slugging, isolated power metrics. And we saw it with Olsen, not necessarily last year, but the year prior. Did he have, like, am I remembering he had like 54 home runs or something? Or was it like close to 50? I don't know why 54 is in my head.
I don't know.
He had 54. So like last year, obviously a down year, he goes from 54 to 29, even though he played all 162 last year, but it was 23 a fluke, almost definitely. But can we get 40 home runs from Olsen? I think it's well within the range. And for Freddie, I think that's probably just outside of reach. So I like both, just ahead of ADP, but I do prefer Olsen to Freddie.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty easy to put those guys together. The guy that Atlanta replaced Freddie with, and then the couple years older. Yeah, I think they're also interesting in terms of both teams are early stack team favorites. So like the person drafting Ohtani is going to go like, I don't know the actual number. I'll say 30% of the time they're going to get maybe Freddie to fall back to him, and they'll build the Ohtani, Freddie, Teoscar. They'll bump Teoscar up a little bit. And then Matt Olson, he can be paired with a ton of other Braves in the first few rounds too. So it's interesting in terms of building with them. I think more often than not, just where they're going and how the teams are viewed, they're going to be stacked with someone. Billy, any other? You have anything else on Matt Olson?
No, I think that Easy's point was to looking for guys that hit for power, that do damage. That's just how the underdog scoring is formatted, because home run is just so weighted heavily, and especially when we're looking for high end ceilings. All these guys are going to have a decently solid floor. So we looking for those guys that kind of stand out from hitting home runs and being able to hit extra bases. And you can see just visually that Freddie Freeman is lower, and then right below that, Matt Olson is one of the highest on this list in terms of being able to hit home runs per plate appearance. So that kind of just stands out to me for him.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's not going to be the last time I do this, but listening to the Rates and Barrels position previews, I do want to bring up something interesting that they theorized on Matt Olson. Being on the Braves, he plays as many games as he wants. So there was just sort of a theory that they threw out, that the 2 full seasons on the Braves kind of, and playoff runs and everything kind of may be wearing on him a little bit. So I don't know. Freddie Freeman has the same. He plays most games too, but it is kind of interesting that he's just like this super max volume player, and those don't always age the same. But I don't know. Speaking of older, I guess he's older now. Bryce Harper is next. There's a jump here about 5 spots in ADP. He projects just perfectly fine. I don't know. Easy. Any Bryce Harper takes?
Yeah, I love Bryce. I think this is like a real sweet window to be drafting infielders, just like macro take. If we were to compare like just raw points, like the infielders you're drafting here versus the outfielders you're drafting here, you get more. Obviously, you need to build a lineup. You can't just like draft infielders for 20 rounds, because if you could, you would. But yeah, Bryce Harper, great lineup, great power, like great pedigree. You really can't go wrong. You can stack it, a bunch of different ways, like cheaper. He's, the most expensive piece on the Phillies. So nothing really bad. Oh, Schwarber. Yeah, in my mind, I still haven't come to grips with the fact that he's like a 1-2 turn guy. But
just blind spot to Schwarber. Understand?
Seriously. But yeah, I do love Bryce Harper.
All right, Bryce Harper's a great example of why you need to look at per plate appearance and not just a total number, because the reason he looks at lower is just because of a plate appearances perspective. Everyone else is up on this board above him is 40 plate appearances clear of him, essentially, and that plays out in that total.
Yeah, and I don't think that's even because that projection is probably an artifact of the injured season. Like moving to first base, I think kind of bumps out a lot of that concern. Schwarber obviously fills the DH spot on that lineup a lot. That Harper doesn't get a lot of rest, quote unquote rest days where he gets to fill the DH spot. But I think that plate appearance is lower than the other guys around him. But I think that's an artifact of missed time from the brace procedure.
All right. I mean, he's not exactly an Iron Man, but he's also not Mike Trout, right? So, like, in the context of like Matt Olson playing 162, like Harper won't play 162, but for the game we play, I don't know if there's like a super meaningful difference between 162 and like call it 145. You just hope those, he makes up for it, and if he misses one game every other week or something, you can survive that.
Yeah. Austin Riley's next. He is ADP about 30, 31. Had a down year last year. Projections have no problem saying that was just a fluke. One of the best home run rates here projected. Billy, Austin Riley, is he a key part of your Brave stacks?
Yeah, I think that Austin Riley is getting kind of a bad rap. He didn't really do anything majorly different last year other than he was hurt. But like the underlying stats, like if you look at his Baseball Savant page, there's still a ton of red. He has a little bit of swing and miss, but it's not really a major problem here, saying that Ks aren't a negative and the on-base percentage and batting average aren't a negative here. But yeah, he crushes the baseball, and that doesn't really change. And if he comes into the season completely healthy, there's no reason he can't get to mid to upper 30 home runs like he had done previously.
I think the tough thing for me is a lot of times when I'm building an early Braves team, I want Matt Olson and then an outfielder. So I think that's something I need to change. I think I need to get some Olson-Riley combos. But that's just me thinking about outfielder as I'm drafting the Braves. So I don't think there's anything against Riley that I have. It's just I've been missing out on him so far. The best projected home run rate here by a slight bump over Vlad and Austin Riley is Rafael Devers, coming off of some end of the year shoulder issues. I guess I haven't seen we'll find out soon where he's at coming into the season. But the Boston Red Sox lineup seems like it's on the rise with some of the prospects potentially getting added, those high level prospects that they have. I know he's a Boston guy, Eric, but where's Devers laying for you?
It's painful, man. I hate that Devers is a Red Sox. I think he's amazing. Like, I think that he's not like super young, but he's entering like his theoretical, prime. I think it used to be, maybe now it's gotten a bit younger, but used to be thought of like 27, 28 was sort of like the peak aging curve in baseball. And that's kind of where he is. We haven't seen him hit 40 home runs yet. Would not shock me if he did. I kind of prefer him to Austin Riley. Not that I have a ton against Austin Riley. Kind of buried me a little bit in the daily streets last year, but I'll move past that and say I think the Red Sox lineup is a bit better than it's been in the past couple of years, which there's some reasons to believe it might be. That Devers, can unlock another level here.
Yeah. Someone who has been not unlocking the other level. I guess last year wasn't quite as bad as the first year in Philadelphia, but Trey Turner here is the last one in the round, the first 3 rounds. Billy Trey, where does he sit for you?
He honestly doesn't belong on this page. If you think about it from like the list of people ahead of him, and then you have Trey Turner, he really belongs in the conversation of the next tier of players. But he's a player that doesn't really hit a ton of home runs, he's going to rack up a ton of bases. Like if you look at his baseball savant, there's not a ton. The red last year was not all over the place like you're hoping for when you're looking for these high end picks. So like just on the wrong side of potentially the aging curve, or and not really as spiky as you could think, and really is kind of boosted by a lot of like assumed accumulation. So not someone I've been targeting, even though I do like the Phillies in general as an offensive environment.
Yeah, I was just looking. He had in 2023 he hit. I know we don't care about average, but he hit 266, which a down season, 108 WRC plus, but it did bounce back more than I thought last year. He did hit almost 300 again. Not the top tier Washington years. He's kind of been on a downswing that way, and but the speed has come down. Only 20 stolen bases last year. That when we see a general increase in stolen bases overall, I guess that's more what I think about. He's still, like you said, he's still going to get a lot of bases, doubles and stuff. But the leading indicator of the overall athleticism of the stolen bases coming down is kind of worrying. All right, so let's get to the next group here. This is a smaller group. This is round 4 through 6. Someone it's funny that you say that. He might not belong there because, you look at the first few names on this list, and pre-Mets signing, Pete Alonso. I guess he's sitting here as of today at 36. I think he still has room to go up closer to, the Devers group there. He's back with the Mets. Again, Soto's there. Eric, where are you at on Pete?
I think the pairing with Soto just makes too much sense here. Actually, how often is that even happening? It's like the wrong side of the board. So I don't know if I would pull him up to 25 or 26 if you want it to be cheeky. I don't absolutely hate that if it's not gonna appear a bunch, but yeah, the first few names I like all more than Trey Turner. So a lot more power here. Pete definitely a down year, and it cost him financially, but in this format I think you look past that. The lineup definitely got a lot better with Soto. And this guy's only a year removed from being one of the most feared power bats in the league. So I think the price is right where it is.
Yeah, for sure. I have a hard time drafting Pete Alonso after his home run in the playoffs last year that I'm still not over.
Yeah. But Devin Williams is gone. It's okay.
Well, now he's your problem or your enjoyment. Yeah, he's fun. Yeah. He's fun to watch. But anyway, Ketel Marte is next here, ADP 38. Just a guy who, like Jose Ramirez, has kind of under the radar in terms of general baseball population. But in fantasy, he's been a guy we've been after, looking for the super healthy years. Has some issues with that, but less so than Corey Seager. Up next, Billy Ketel Marte. talk about that. Him.
Yeah, a player who's been undervalued for years is feel like now properly valued. And so he's still on this sheet projects as the highest scoring total player, which is interesting. And that Arizona Diamondbacks offense just went absolutely crazy last year. So with Naylor, they could get a little bit better, but I think that he's been a player that I'm interested in drafting. But this is probably about his like ultimate ceiling. There's no seeing him being a first or second round pick next year.
True. I mean, we'll get to Josh Naylor, but I'm going to push back on the Christian Walker verse being much better than Josh Naylor on that on that change in the lineup. But yeah, I think that's a great point, pointing out that this is probably where he should go. There's not really, if anything, he's going to fall next year because he misses time with one of his, lower body injuries that have plagued him in previous years. Not so much. I guess even the last 3 years, he got, I'm just looking here, over 550 plate appearances. But before that, he had a couple of seasons. I think that people are factoring in also. Speaking of injuries, we have the ever injured Corey Seager next. He had another core surgery in the off season. I don't know. I love Corey Seager. You look at, he's got the red here in the plate appearances, but the darkest blue in the UD points per plate appearance. Eric, how scared are you of the time that Corey Seager is going to miss, likely, with this or that?
Like little to none. I think I like him quite a bit more than ADP. Like I think he's a really good candidate that to show up with 15-20 plus % of and sprinkle him throughout the board instead of like if he's always going close to ADP, like pull him up to like that 3-4 turn at times, and get different like constructions with him. Like I think he's an anchor if you're talking about like single week spike guys. I think his like just metrics like between slugging, isolated power, home runs. I think he's the spikiest profile of any infielder that there is, which is kind of crazy. Like that surprised me. Would have thought would have been like a first baseman DH type, but no, shortstop Corey Seager, like rates wise, I think is possibly the spikiest infielder in the entire player pool, and you can get him in the middle of round 4. So I'll take the risk. I'm taking 7 infielders. It's okay if he misses, a couple of weeks here and there.
It's really interesting that you say that. So to build like the Rangers premium stack is Langford in round 2, but then you have Seager and Adolis Garcia in round 4, and then you also have Semien in round 5. So to do that, you're going to have to pull one of them up to round 3. So Seager, with his, while potentially missing some time, his super high ceiling makes it a more like reasonable person to do that with.
Yeah, since we talked about that on the show when we were looking at the potential stacks, I did that once, and that was really my thought too. I took Langford, I pulled up Seager, and I said, I'll take, if any of the other two guys, I'm not feeling lost on the stack if one of the other two guys I'd miss on. Maybe I won't get all 4, but that seems fine. I'd rather have that than missing out on Seager.
Mm-hmm.
Manny Machado, another guy who is, just a consistent performer. Kind of surprised that, even though he's got a decent home run rate projected, the points per plate appearance is smaller than these guys around him. And, in my brain, I still put, third base. I put Manny Machado next to Devers and Riley in my brain, and maybe I need to. I don't take him up there, but I don't know. That's interesting because I've also started to get scared of maybe the psychological effects of the Padres this year. in terms of the front office ownership drama and like the lack. Well, they've started to do very small off-season moves. They got Connor Joe and Jason Hayward now there to like fill these gaps that they've had in their roster all off season. So I have some concern that just in general Padres do not perform with that, but that's just creating a narrative. Eric, Manny Machado, what do you think?
It's like kind of totally neutral. He's like diet Jose Ramirez, not necessarily like he doesn't steal bases. But he just kind of shows up and performs. I am surprised, like the per plate appearance, like given the home run rate, but I guess like if he hits it hard, it goes over the wall. Like not as many doubles here. So yeah, I think that there probably is a little more systemic risk in the Padres than people might want to admit, given how much they like Jackson Merrill, earlier in the draft. So I think, if you compare them, great. Otherwise, like Machado is just like show up with him around the field. He's not a target for me. He's not an avoid, but it just kind of exists.
Yeah. We'll stay with you with the next Yankee, Jazz Chisholm. He's there in New York now. We saw him steal a ton of bases once he got to New York last year. He's got the short porch to target for power. I mean, the downside is the inconsistent playing time that he's had due to injuries. But I guess I said I was going to go to you, but I'm saying I'm really in on Jazz. This year, we saw him pop from the bullpen contest from outfield to infield in this contest and drop, I don't know, a round or so. I don't have the exact number, but I'm really happy where Jazz is going.
Yeah, the price is definitely appropriate here. Like he's younger than I think. Like if you've been playing fantasy baseball a while, like you've been thinking about Jazz Chisholm for a while, so he's only 27, quote unquote only. So like not that I think he's going to, would you say it's like post hype? Like I don't. I think we haven't seen him do it yet over a full season.
Yeah.
So if you can get 140 games out of Jazz, I think like he's going to smash this price. How much like does he have like? Can he pay off like several rounds ahead of this? I don't know. But I think the price is super fair. I have him, like 4 or 5 spots ahead of ADP. Good in stacks. Like he kind of does it all. So you just got to pray for health and draft accordingly.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird to talk about his hype because it feels like he's always had some like baseball people don't like him sort of thing because of his personality and like back when his early days he was getting platooned or he was batting when he had this huge upside visible, but he was batting ninth against lefties. And I mean he hasn't been great against lefties ever, but there
shouldn't be that risk this year with the Yankees. Not a ton of depth like that's not in the lineup, especially like right hand. Like I don't know, is he going to lose at bats to like DJ LeMahieu or like glove only guys? And he's a good glove too. Right. So I think the Yankees would rather, he's going to bat possibly second, with Soto gone, so he could bat second against righties. And they, we saw him in the playoffs still batting like 6th or 7th even against lefties. So I think that's totally fine there. And like in clubhouse fit, like he like seemed to like everything was going well. I don't know how much of that leaves with Soto gone, right? As far as like the jovialness of that clubhouse. But I think it's should still be a good lineup and he's a good fit.
Yeah, it's definitely not one you think would fit in a Yankees clubhouse. Just things
are different these days.
Yeah.
Like, Still no beards, but you can smile and laugh a little bit more.
Yeah, still don't put your name on the jersey. You don't want to have too much of an identity. Anyway, another guy actually who kind of sneakily has a lot of missed time due to injury, Ozzy Albies, because when he's in there, he's playing every day. But you look at, I've got it here quick. You look at 2019 700 plate appearances, 2020 100, 2021 680, then 270, 660, and then 435. So I'm not saying, I don't really know that he's injury prone. Some of the stuff maybe is fluky, but he's here. He's down in terms of projected total points and per plate appearance points in this group. There's some higher than him. Billy Ozzy Albies, where does he sit when you're, just in general, and then when you're looking at Brave stacks?
Like kind of underwhelming. And I don't think kind of rule one when looking at players is do I like them like in a vacuum? Then do I want to build them with a stack? And like if I'm thinking about like a round 5 price, it should be a part of the premium players on that team. And he's for the first time in several years not projected to be the part of the top of the lineup, which is somewhat concerning to me in terms of like somewhat a player that we are going to rely upon some sort of volume to drive him, as well as he is a player that is also switch hitter much more dominant on the right hand side. So you're not going to run into a crazy amount of lefties in a row, but you could run into a bunch of righties in a row, and that's just he's just a little underwhelming. So not a big target of mine so far.
I think because of the injury last year, he did not. When he came back, he did not switch hit. So I will be curious to know this year if he does decide, or if he does go back to switch hitting. Either way, they have Michael Harris to bat in place of him against righties early in the lineup if they really want that.
Yeah, I don't want to super pile on, but like Ozzy, similar to Trey Turner, like he's the infielder I have lowest versus ADP. Like I think the stack gravity is just doing way too much here. So he's like stack only for me, but I think a lot of people are pulling him up for stacks. If you can push him, I think I'd prefer that. Interesting. Like he's always been a guy that we've like fanboyed about, like, oh, what if he just like always bats right-handed? And last year he did go right versus right, 33 plate appearances, like, which is a lot. He's only done it 14 times prior to last year. So some of that might've been injury related. I do wonder maybe there's some sneaky, like that's the only upside case to me for Ozzy Albies at this point is if he ditches switch hitting a la Cedric Mullins, but from the other side.
Yeah. Another guy who I guess he's kind of underwhelming, but he's a complete volume guy. Marcus Semien still steals some bases, doesn't hit a ton of home runs, but has just been a monster in terms of playing time. I guess today or recently I saw some blurbs from the beat reporters talking about giving him more days off this year, which is an interesting concern for the type of player that he is personally. I think that that bumps him down a little bit for me. If that's true, I don't know. They're talking about. I mean, part of that blurb was also Evan Carter leading off against righties instead of Semien. Sometimes
I'll believe that when I see it.
Right. That was where I was going. Was it? They're saying they're going to give him some days off, but if he's needed, and the Rangers they have spent their money. They need to compete now. They have issues with their TV deal, so they don't have any more to spend. I mean, you look at, this doesn't really apply to us, but look at what they're rolling out for bullpen, and they haven't been in on any of these closers that have been signing lately. Is kind of a telling sign that they don't have any more money to spend, so they do need to compete. So I don't know. I'm still gonna take him occasionally in Rangers stacks, but there is definite concern for me on Marcus Semien and where he's at on the aging curve and playing time, because he is just such a volume player.
It's really one of these things where if like they reduce his volume a little bit, that hurts. But if the entire environment improves, because last year was less than we expected, then that he is a benefit of that as well, because he's going to be sitting right at the top. So it's like I think it just weighs back to the same.
Okay.
Yeah, stack only for me for that reason.
Okay. Next is I guess I don't know. Sorry to you guys listening. I don't know why I'm choosing to say the ADPs of some people and some people not. Sorry to you audio only listeners, but I'll try to get better about it. O'Neal Cruz, ADP of 62 now. So there's a little bit of a bump here between that is the start of the 6th round. The plate appearance is lower on him. He has struggled against lefties. We saw a bit last year where against some lefties he was batting later in the lineup. But Billy O'Neal Cruz, he's still on the Pirates, so there's no one really to push him out.
Yeah, it's like a player that we have all of this like desire to be really good, but hasn't put it together yet. And best ball is the perfect format for him to draft him and be like, okay, if it works out, he's going to be a must-have kind of player. But there's a definitely like, okay, if it doesn't work out, it's just a part of the portfolio that loses. The one thing I think is interesting is the stacking gravity. Him and Brian Reynolds like line up on the right side of the board nicely together. I think that they're going to stay in unison. Like if Cruz goes up, then they're going to kind of just like he will fall back. So I think they're going to just align from a draft perspective.
And then you don't have to draft the Pirate after that. You can be your 2-man stack.
I don't think that there's anyone else in the top like that's draftable right now.
Yeah, I can't think of anyone off the top of my head, but I'm getting O'Neal Cruz by himself too. We're still at a point where, like, between miss the freak injury at the home plate, like he missed a full year almost. So although he is starting to get older, not like super old, but he's past that. Oh, here's this young guy with a bunch of potential. He's starting to reach the put up or shut up sort of point in the massive exit velocities that he's showing. Can he convert that into a whole year of good production? But I
was gonna say he has such a fun baseball savant page. 100th percentile bat speed, 99th percentile average exit velocity. That's the kind of stuff that could be Elly next year.
Yeah, and I've always last year, why take one Cruz and we can take the other later. I don't think that really super applies to anymore, but I'm still in on O'Neal Cruz. Guy who I am not super in because the Bat X is really hitting the aging curve on Jose Altuve. Eric, Jose Altuve, where do you have him ranked? And there's a bump here of ADP. He goes around 68, 67, 68. So later on in the 6th round.
Yeah, I'm pretty far behind ADP here. I have him at like pick 80. Just aging curve, relative lack of pop here for the infield position. Like if I can, like, just I have Christian Walker almost 2 full rounds ahead of Jose Altuve, just kind of back to back there. So like the projection here is only about 20 raw points apart, but I think there's a lot. like Walker also is kind of older, but I think we've seen a pretty monstrous ceiling a couple of years ago, like 2 years ago, in going to playing in Houston, like the Crawford boxes, like you can kind of visualize it. So I have him ranked like about a round ahead of ADP, and I'm a full round behind ADP on Altuve. So I much prefer Walker to Altuve, and trying not to be biased there, but in just letting the kind of projections play it out there.
Yeah, letting the projections feed into your bias. Absolutely.
Exactly.
I'm the same. If I have Jordan, I'm always taking Christian Walker before Jose Altuve if I'm building a Houston stack. And I'm much, just weekly upside spike guys. I'm going to take Christian Walker by himself too over Jose Altuve.
And one question, I guess, and this is just something that's literally come to mind and right on the moment, but like for aging curve perspectives, I wonder if Altuve there's some component that is being overweighted because he has the Crawford boxes, which are kind of glitchy, that he can access, or if that's a component that's baked in as well. I don't know the answer. It's just something that I'm thinking about. This isn't like me saying that I love Altuve, though.
Yeah, it's interesting because, just quick look, 2023, his WRC plus was 155. Last year it was 127, but all the systems have projected for 120 or worse this year, which is still 20% better than league average. But it is interesting because I guess he's only 34. I don't know if it's size. I guess it's probably some EV related thing because he's never been a guy that super smashes the ball. I don't know. I guess his barrel rate was down last year from the couple previous seasons too. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure what the projections are seeing either. All right. The last one for this evening, round 7 through 10. We have starting with Willy Adames, ADP of 72. Moving to, I guess he's getting talked about all over the roto fantasy baseball landscape. So the two big knocks on him from looking at I guess there's maybe three things looking at last season. If you're looking at last season and the peak, he's moving from Milwaukee to San Francisco, so a big bump down in terms of home park advantage. Number two, he just out of nowhere stole double the total bases than he had ever. So that's kind of a phenomenon that people like to attribute to walk year on players, stealing more to inflate their value. And then number three, something I saw, I don't know the number, but he had really high percentage of at-bats with guys on base. So it was like up there in the historical amounts. So he kind of benefited quite a bit from, there was a couple of weeks there where every home run he hit was a 3-run home run. So that was kind of like two statistical anomalies in the profile, as well as the park downgrade. I'm actually kind of surprised he hasn't bumped lower in terms of ADP, but I'll take him, but not very often.
Yeah, he's not a target of mine. I think like kind of stack only. He's younger like than his like perceived age for me because he's been in like the stratosphere for probably 5 years. So he's not exactly a prospect. He's kind of matured, but we did see him hit kind of a ceiling last year, and he's getting paid. I think he's fine at ADP, but there are a couple of guys behind him that I do prefer.
Yeah. The first catcher on the list here, Billy, is William Contreras. I guess for those who are confused by why a catcher can be so high on this list, and why he's still going there, what is it about William that puts him here at this ADP of about 72 with Willie?
Before we move on, though, quickly, Willie
Oh, yeah.
Adames, I did wanted to mention that it's funny. You mentioned the 3-run home runs. Like he tied the MLB record for most three-run home runs in a season with 13. So I think that was just a funny little nugget.
Yeah.
But William Contreras plays every day, catches, and then when he doesn't catch, DHs, and is just a great hitter. He hits for power, hits for solid average, and just a ton of volume. I think one thing with Adames and Contreras is you're kind of coming off peak seasons last year, and you hate to be buying in any time that someone's coming off of those kind of peak seasons. But projections kind of seem to be saying that they're a good value, both of them, and in general, it seemed fine with it. In this range, I think I'm looking elsewhere. I'm kind of loving the pitchers in this range, which makes it hard to click some of these names, or I'm wrapping up some of my like fourth or fifth outfielders, but I think they're fine.
Yeah, and he is definitely, he's 27. He's at the peak, and I think this might be like after a full year of catching, and if he gets that same amount of playing time this year, I think I'm going to start to worry. I mean, we saw it with JT Realmuto, a guy that gets a bunch of catching innings. The downfall comes quicker even than a lot of other players.
And on the point of catching, like I think that catchers, while could be underrated in this format based on the volume issues, they will get tired throughout the season. You see catchers just be absolutely abysmal in the playoffs comparatively to what they are seeing in themselves, just because they've had so many plate appearances. So if we're trying to backweight our production, catchers may not always be the best bet for that.
True. All right, next we have Mark Vientos, a guy who, when the bat came out, is kind of put a bunch of cold water on the hype. Still kind of an okay home run rate, but doesn't really love everything else about him. Easy. Mark Vientos, ADP 75. He's a single target, a stack target, or no target?
Stack only for me, which it sucks to like not like the flash, like the pretty decent to good power 25-year-old. But he's like a good, not great prospect. So like pedigree there, like it was a super surprise what he was able to pull off last year. And I don't know if he can repeat. Like you're counting on like a repeat and possibly even some growth to pay off the tag here. I think like I'd almost rather shoot the moon with Junior. A couple picks later, as far as like more of a complete prospect profile. I don't want to get ahead of it there. So like I think Vientos is. Like I understand why he goes here. Like he's young and people want to buy into that, and great lineup and whatever. Maybe I have like Miguel Andujar PTSD of like the New York third baseman that like has like an amazing rookie year, and then kind of falls off. But that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, let's move past it. I don't, Junior Caminero here, ADP of 80. Billy, let's say we're a week out from the start of the season. What's Junior Caminero's ADP?
46. and that wasn't even me trying to be serious about this. It was just more along the lines of like I'm kind of blown away that it hasn't moved up already. He had the highlights in the winter leagues, and he has unbelievable bat speed. He's got all the charisma. He's going to have some unbelievable home runs in spring training, and if there's like players that we know are going to rise because of certain kind of profiles, he's one of them. So there's that. And then Tampa is a team that's like a sneaky build that you can kind of build later, and he starts that for you. There's a couple different ways to attack that. So just an awesome pick that you can make right now, especially from like what I think will be the ultimate closing line.
Yeah, and I think it's hard to get him even here sometimes, but yeah, I don't know if he's going to go up, but like I'm going to bump back on the slide here. So, I think there's no reason he can't be in this late 50s round by the time we see him. Bump him over these other guys ahead of him.
I mean, let's do it. So cheap. Him or Ozzy Albies?
If I have a Brave, Ozzy. If I don't have a Brave, Junior.
Then Marcus Semien.
I guess same thing.
And you're going to probably do that
I'm
all the way down.
I'm not going to take him over to Jazz. So maybe 50. Maybe 50 is the answer for me. But that I'm not going to say I'm more reasonable, but I'm a little less hype focused than the general public. Like all you need is one person in your draft to be a hype chaser.
For sure.
And you're not getting him. So yeah.
Yeah,
right.
I would compare it to like the Wyatt Langford hype and rise from last year, and obviously Langford, is an outfielder, and I think a more complete prospect, a little older. Not that he's old by any stretch. I think he's like 22, but Junior's like legit 20 years old.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll be 21 at some point in the year. So I could see like similar, like he's going to go up, 2-3 rounds from where it opened. And I think that's justifiable. One more thing that I'll butt in here is for Tampa. Like if you haven't like adjusted your brain to, their stadium kind of got messed up during the hurricane season there. So they're playing at the Yankee spring training stadium for the year, which is very different. The stadium dimensions are built as an exact replica of Yankee Stadium. So, I mean, Junior's a righty, but it's still a relatively short porch in left field. And there's going to be variability there. I think it's going to be offensively friendly, but like it rains a lot in Florida, and it's hot a lot in Florida. So like if you think about how Yankee Stadium is a pretty friendly ballpark, I think there's some upside that this is going to play friendly if it's hot, or you might get some rainouts and stuff. So it's there's some upside there, but uncertainty in the ballpark.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah, definitely something we need to also revisit once we start talking about Rays pitchers in the pitching episode too. All right, so we got fellow gambler CJ Abrams here, Billy, getting demoted to AAA last year when there was no AAA games left, out at the casino till the wee hours of the morning before a day game. I think my problems on CJ Abrams go. I'm not concerned about that as much as the inconsistent ability that, or like over a course of season, of him to keep up production, power and steals and all that. I guess national stacks are fine. You can pair him with a bunch of other hype outfielders if you want. But Billy, CJ Abrams, where are you at?
Yeah, he's a profile that I typically will fade. That column on the far right, the stolen base UD percentage, I have that in there to kind of take a look at the guys whose profiles or total numbers are kind of inflated by stats which aren't going to be not bad, because this is ultimately a total points game, but they're not going to produce high-end outcomes, and this is still trying to look for guys that can put big numbers up. So he's been someone I'm not overly interested in. Also, when you look at his baseball savant, like his hitting profile is a lot of blue. There's no red there. It's just that he runs real fast. So I don't know. It's not a target for me.
I will bump this back to you, Eric. I know you have, you look at some prospect pedigree and stuff in your rankings. So, in terms of that, how does that apply for your thinking about Abrams?
Abrams' profile, like the way he scores points is not something that I target, but the age and prospect profile is. So I actually am ahead of ADP on him. This is not a good comparison in that A, he's not as good of a prospect as the person I'm about to compare him to, and B, that person is unspeakable. but like similar to like Wander Franco, where people kind of penciled him in to, oh, he's like a 30 doubles, 15 home runs guy. I think like Abrams, he doesn't have like a ton of pop, but if he's hitting 20 home runs in kind of disappointing seasons, like maybe he can push that up to 25 and get like 40 doubles, and then we're looking at 40, 50 steals. So I think that there's still juice to be squeezed here in a lineup that could be pretty fun. So I'm pretty into Abrams. It stacks, like he's a super target, but even not in stacks, I think I like him more than some of the proven guys around here. So
that's a great point. The power is probably there more than I want to give him credit for. Speaking of power, Josh Naylor is here now on the Diamondbacks, ADP 88, getting a really bad park downgrade. I think for lefty power or home runs, it's like bottom 3 in terms of park factor.
It's last.
Oh, it's last? Okay.
I'm looking at it right now.
All right.
Wow.
So what do you think about that, Billy?
It's not good. So I think it is as simple as that. Cleveland last year, I'm looking at it was about league average 96 rated from a home run perspective. And then when you see the Arizona, Chase Field is 76. So quite a material difference in terms of like environment to hit at. So I think there needs to be some level of reduction of what your expectation is. That will be baked into the numbers that we're looking at here, though. I think that is one of the bet. I think the Bat X and Cardi is very sharp with how he's going to adjust from a park factors, environments, and so on. So I think that's why I think all three of us are quite keen on it as a projection system.
Yeah, I loved Naylor last year. I think I just want to cash out my chips here. Like it's not a full fade, but there's like kind of stacks only. There's a maybe 0.1% chance you can luck into baseball, like not Budsy, like whoever it is now, Manfred, being like, let's bring the offense back and like let's not put those baseballs in cigar boxes in Arizona, and then you're cooking. But probably wasn't worth the 30 seconds I spent fantasizing about it.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be lying if I didn't sometimes consider them bringing, even just juicing the ball a little bit again like that. We brought the steals up now and be like, hey, let's turn this other knob a little bit, and maybe no one will notice, even though it'd be better if they just said, hey, yeah, we're gonna do this, by the way,
for sure.
But then they'd have to admit to having changed it before, which leads to a whole spiral of cycle. Next up, Tristan Casas, a young guy, Boston Red Sox, ADP 92. Another guy, along with Vientos, that when the Bat X came out, people were pointing out just how far down that projection system was. Easy, he's still a young guy. Some question about, he was rumored to be on the trading block as they were trying to bring in some other, third base options, and they still not totally out on Bregman. But Tristan Casas, where are you targeting him?
This is one where like I respect Hardy like a lot in what he does. I think he's probably like the best at the hitter stuff. I'm shocked at how much people are respecting it for not for Abrams, but for Casas. I'm 2 whole rounds ahead of ADP here. Just looking at not like last year, but the year prior, slugging 490, 360, like 130 WRC plus at 22 years old. I think there's a ton of upside here. The profile is exactly what we want. Is there risk? He's a lefty. Like, does he sit, 20 some odd games that are unfavorable matchups, his first baseman. So maybe, but this is someone that I'm much more excited. Like, I have him ranked ahead of Altuve if you want to talk about a guy, we haven't talked about for 20, 30 minutes, I have Cusses ahead of Altuve. So yeah, this is an 81 where I think we're respecting the projections a bit too much here.
And the BATX is an outlier. I mean, if you look through all of them on Fangraphs, it is notably lower on home runs. It has the same plate appearances, so it's something under the rate statistics. ISOs a good bit lower, so I think that is noteworthy. You got to look at multiple different ones and kind of see what's going on there. But you nailed it. He's a young player. He's ascending, hits the ball super hard, and then when we like Devers, putting Casas on that team too is just such a brilliant stack. So it's like individually a target as well as when you love both of the stacking partners.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you can swing hard enough to cause rib damage similar to a car crash, you think he's got a little bit of bat speed there. Matt Chapman is the exact opposite of Tristan Casas. Just always a year after year bat X love. Billy, Matt Chapman on the Giants again for the second year. Do you think, do you think we're properly rating him now? And two, what do you think about, he's projected for 2% point from stolen bases. I guess I'll have to look up how many he's actually projected for, but he's another guy that just came out of nowhere last year with a bunch of stolen bases on a potential salary year.
And so I think this is an interesting, the projection, just because the stolen bases are low. So the assumption here is that he's going to kind of shut it down a little bit. But what happens if that's not the case? Then these numbers are going to look even better. From like a baseball savant perspective, he's got some of his advanced metrics are really red on like bat speed, 97th percentile. And he's also a mature player. So he's 31 years old. We know what he's going to be. A lot of comfortable. You can be really comfortable with the projections for him. So yeah, great target. For me, someone I actually haven't been selecting a ton of, just because I've been selecting a lot of pitchers here, and I need to be more conscious of like, okay, this is a player that may not fit the structure that I like to draft, but he's a player that I like, so I should figure out how to draft that player.
Yeah, and for me, he is kind of an out. I've said it before. The Giants are kind of an outlet stack for me at this point. If I'm down a few outfielders, I like taking Chapman and then get Elliot Ramos, and Jung-Hoo Lee is just a three-man at this part of the draft. But like you said, there's a lot of pitchers going around here. I guess this worked out pretty well as we were swapping back and forth, because Easy last year, Matt McLean was huge on your target list. So where are you at going into this year after a whole year with miss from injury?
Yeah, I don't know if I get like I get a redo or I get a mulligan on that one, because DNP. So we don't know, but it's tough. He's like a semi-fragile. Like, he was a guy that like a average to good prospect who then came up and like kind of smashed over a small sample, a la, let's say, like Evan Carter, where it was like, wow, this guy's doing what and like how, like we didn't really understand like the underlying like the counting stats were better than the underlying metrics, and like the prospect pedigree wasn't there. And that was someone I was like, yeah, I'll buy into the uncertainty last year. Good ballpark, fun lineup. And then he doesn't play. And I think there's just like a little too much uncertainty in the pedigree here. Like I'm gonna cool it. Like I'm right at ADP on him. I hate to like I'm taking, it's like you put in a wager, and like on, let's say you bet on the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, and then and like for $100 and a halftime, like DraftKings offers you like 39 cents, and you're like, man, like I'm going to lose this bet, like, but do I really need the 39 cents? So I'm like, I'm considering cashing out on Matt McLean for 39 cents, but no, I'm not super excited about him. Fun stacks available kind of all throughout. the draft here with the Reds, and that's kind of how I'm viewing it.
Yeah, it's funny because even when he had that, rookie, short sample, he even got hurt that year too. So it's tough to know exactly who Matt McLain is. A guy who we do know who he pretty much is, Alex Bregman. I think he's here at 101, and Billy, how much of this projection is, or how much of this ADP is related to not having a team, and how much is related to kind of the leveling off of his production the last few years?
I think that very rarely do we see a player sign and then his ADP go down. Typically, it's like, okay, there's some uncertainty. People don't know what to do with them. They're not going to. There's not the stacking gravity, so they don't select them, and then they kind of move on. But Bregman, quite literally, if has a landing spot or a couple landing spots, which are not good hitting environments for him, and if that's the case, if he lands in Chicago, then those projections might go down. He's a right-handed hitter that has relied upon the Crawford boxes and pulling the baseball with not a ton of power, actual real power, or in the last several years. So I don't know. There's a dangerous profile here that could be significantly cheaper in a couple of weeks.
Oh, I don't think even if he signs with Detroit or the Cubs, and those bad hitting environments, I think he's still going to go up. So, I'm, if you want to get him, I think you still target him here. I'll bump this back to you, Billy. Ezequiel Tovar, because the Rockies are a team that you've got some opinions on this year. You look at he is a max volume player because of the glove. He plays in Coors, but he just doesn't walk. So I guess Ezequiel Tovar, Billy, where does he fit in Rocky stacks and outside of them?
Rocky stacks only. Kind of is the way I'm playing it. He is a shortstop who's going to play every single day because, as you said it, he's fantastic with the glove, and he's the type of guy who I would watch play baseball and be like, he's not very good, but my eye test because of just the swing and miss over and over and over again. When you look at this profile, this actual format, Coors does work, and I like that. So I've been building a bunch of Rockies, and when I looked at the team level WRC plus kind of numbers, it definitely has scared me, and I'm sure he's a part of that. But Coors scores a bunch.
Yeah, and should play. Bo Bichette, ADP 107. Easy. Is there any ceiling left in Bo Bichette, or is it only down from here?
Wow. I hadn't looked at I had to control F Bo Bichette.
Okay.
I'm 3 rounds behind on Bo Bichette here, so it kind of sticks off the page. I if I were to play the bull, is his actual age is much younger than his perceived age, just because of the gravity that he's had with the name and the pedigree, and he's been in the majors for 6 years now. Yeah, I don't know if we're ever going to get 30 home runs out of Bo Bichette. I don't want to close the book on him because he might have some power in there, but stacks only 1 or 2 rounds past ADP. As Billy kind of mentioned, this is kind of the pitcher oasis, especially now pitcher prices are cheaper than ever. It's a lot of people are probably doing the zero pitcher thing or anchor pitcher thing, and you're hammering pitcher, rounds 8, 9, 10. So it's possible you get a guy like Bo Bichette, ADP 107. I feel like you could see him probably pick 120. And at that point, it might make sense for your team build. So I think you can show up with 5 5% Bichette at like super cheap prices. And I think that's probably the way that I would play it.
Yeah, fair enough. So let's see. Eugenio Suarez. I had to look up his age. I feel like he's actually older. He's 33. I feel like he feels older because he's made it through his Reds days, his Seattle days, and now Diamondbacks. Billy, he was someone that people were in the start of the season basically saying this guy's gonna get DFA'd. So what happened last year with him, and what do you think about this year for him?
Yeah, you said it perfectly. It's like completely two different seasons. Pre All-Star, he hit 216. Post All-Star, 307. So it's just a complete bounce back. Definitely an older player. How old is he? 33. But still does seem to have decent barrel and bat speeds about league average. So player that is interesting to me. If he can get to 30 home runs in mid rounds of the draft, that's always great.
Yeah, I guess I don't think he's getting to 30 home runs again. Maybe I'd like to be wrong because he was always a late round target of mine in previous years. But I can't get him at this ADP. Even in stacks, I'm not going to him. All right. We have our second catcher on the list, Adley Rutschman. Eric, where do you think his season went down last year? Is it injury related? Is it just more of who he actually is, or what does the prospect stuff say on him as well as looking at last year?
Yeah, I think he's, if you're an NFL person, I would compare, like, I wanted to say that he's generational, but he's not. He's like he's like the best prospect in every 3 to 5 year type. So like think of like Ashton Jeanty as like a comparison if you're an NFL person. He's like super good, like all the superlatives, like generational. It's like, oh, is it really generational? Like there's someone just as good like a couple years before, a couple years after. But all that to say, maybe that's more about like who he is as a complete player than he is as a fantasy producer. However, I think there's a lot more power here than he's showcased. Some of that, obviously playing catcher weighs on you in that regard. He's also a switch hitter. I don't know. I don't remember if he has like super split one way or the other. I will say I was at the home run derby in Seattle where he, I think like midstream kind of switch. He was going lefty, midstream switch, went righty and kind of went off. So like you could sell yourself a story on like some injury or some like, the post home run derby hangover. If you remember, I'm dating myself, like Bobby Abreu was like the poster child for like, don't do the home run derby. And then there's probably more recent examples of that, of guys that like just kind of went too hard in the home run derby. So, I'm kind of selling myself on that. I'm like way ahead of Adley, which kind of surprised me, but he's not super young, but I think he can tap into like, if you get 30 home runs out of him and everyone's penciling him in for 20, I think you can beat ADP by a good spot here, middle of a pretty good lineup. Also variability of like, they're bringing the fence in left field. So, it could help, for, a quarter or a third of his plate appearances.
Good point. Let's stick with you on this last one because we got another Yankee. Paul Goldschmidt goes to New York. I'll just say I think he still has a good season left in him. A lot of the underlying stuff last year didn't match the results.
Yeah, I think, man, he's sold.
So
I think it's just, I always
use him as a benchmark because he's like a month older than me, so he's like my benchmark on the league. So it does kind of hurt when you say that.
You would admit you're probably past your athletic prime. Goldschmidt's probably a good 10 years past his, which isn't to say he's a bad fantasy pick, actually, which actually says quite a lot. He's like kind of Hall of Very Good kind of guy. Stack only for me. It's kind of a boring cop-out answer. I don't think, he's not a guy that I think can really beat ADP by more than like 10 or 20 picks in like a super outlier year. But you might want to run into like, oh wow, the Yankees are like so much better than people kind of expect. So you probably want the stack.
That's a good point. All right, we did it. We made it through 10 rounds of infielders. I guess how are you feeling after that, Billy? Do you did you feel like there was any names in there that we didn't talk about quite enough? Any callbacks you need to do as we were going there?
I don't think so. I think that we covered most of it. We're going to do a second part to this. So if people have specific questions that they want us to cover or thoughts, definitely put them in the comments because we can address that in this part 2. No, but this was really good when EZ did this last year. Being so detailed and thorough about every single person would help me so much. So I think that being able to do this was awesome.
Yeah, this is these are fun to do. We spent a lot of time talking macro on a lot of our shows, kind of on purpose, because we don't want to give a ton of player takes, because that's not really what we're about. But it's fun to do all these shows and just kind of talk through it, and having different viewpoints gets different thoughts. So, all right, so yeah, this will be out tomorrow on Wednesday. I guess we're recording this on Tuesday, behind the curtain, and then we will get the second part out to you on Friday. So look forward to that. And in the meantime, for Billy and EZ and myself, have a good one, and go fill those lobbies.